and things like that too. So.
Mm-hmm.
And we're almost connected. Go. All right, let me just check, make sure we're good to go on YouTube here, and then we will fire away. And we are live. All right, hello everybody tuning in on YouTube. Thanks for coming back for the second part of tonight's doubleheader. Those of you that joined us for Dustin Perry, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And while you're here, if you want to click that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, that's cool. If not, doesn't matter. I'm not a numbers guy and I'm not here for the clicks, but if you want to do so, that'd be awesome. I'm going to give it just a minute here for a few more people to get the notification and come on in. Give it just a minute here and then we will take off with today's guest. Check here. Actually, looks like this stream actually looks a little bit better, so that's positive.
I bring good energy.
Is that what it is? We'll keep that energy going. Keep it going. All right. If you're ready, I'm ready. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Hey, everybody. This is Sean Coletta with It Came From the Podcast. Thank you for coming back. Those of you watching us on YouTube, this is our second episode of our first doubleheader of the night. We're doing episodes 3 and 4 in one night. I have an early bedtime, so I don't know if I'll make it through this. No, I'll do my best, I promise. For those of you that are just joining in, thank you for joining the YouTube live. For those of you that are listening to us just on our podcast, if you're interested in watching live and participating in the show, just head to It Came From the Podcast on YouTube and hit the subscribe button, the like button, hit the alarm. I'm not a big numbers guy, so if you want to, please do. I'm not I'm not checking my YouTube numbers every day to see how many subscribers I have. This is for you, so an opportunity for you to hear about a lot of different topics by a lot of different people, and we've got a lot of people coming up for the rest of the year. In fact, the rest of this month, next Monday, we're going to be joined by Father Ken Torres. Father Ken, for those of you that don't know him, he is a ordained priest. He is an exorcist. He is a demonologist, and he is a very good friend of mine. Just an amazing human being, and I'm really excited to introduce him to those of you that haven't met him before. And then on the 28th, we're going to have Mr. Bob Freeman, the occult detective. He is also one of the main writers for the Vampirella comic books. So if you're a comic book person or you like Vampirella, Frank Frazetta, it's one of his originals. He also did Tarzan, all kind of other stuff. You'll be interested to hear what he has to say too. And we're not going to be talking about comic books with Bob. We're going to be talking about an Oddfellows haunted location of his that I've been to several times. And what an awesome place that is. But tonight, our guest is a paranormal investigator and researcher, also a psychic medium, creator and producer for Studio 6 Media Productions. He is, I believe, appeared on or has a show on Ghost Planet Network on Roku TV. So for those of you that have Roku TV, you're definitely going to want to check that out as well. And we'll talk about that. And I read something interesting about you, our guest today, Mr. J.D. Hill. I read that you are a chef.
Yeah, actually, I'm a grill chef. Yep.
Okay.
I work in a country pub, so.
Okay. I worked around 20 years or so in the restaurant industry, and I loved to cook. It was one of my favorite things. And where I work at now, the people that own the place that I work for also own a restaurant. So every time I go in there, I just want to hop back on that grill. But I reached a point in time where I got burned out on it, and now it's starting to come full circle, and I really want to do it again. So we'll see what happens. Who knows?
Right.
But anyway, thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to be with us here
Mm-hmm.
tonight on the podcast. I appreciate it. Um, for those of you that are unaware, I have a brand new magazine coming out. It's called Para, All Things Paranormal. And this magazine touches on everything from ghosts to cryptids to UFOs, UAPs, a wide variety of subjects. It's not limited just to ghosts or anything like that. And Mr. Hill is actually going to be part of the premiere issue. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Jay, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. You are obviously a paranormal investigator and researcher. I always put those two together um, because I think they should go hand in hand. Even if you identify as a paranormal investigator, you still have to have some research involved in those things. But I really want to talk tonight about psychic mediumship. It's a mixed bag when you start talking to people about this ability and the things that come along with it. You either have people who are completely on board and believe entirely that this is possible, that people can see things and hear things and have unique parts of this ability. Then you have your detractors who say, oh, that's all a bunch of crap. It's not possible. It doesn't exist. Can't happen. I have had a couple of profound experiences with some psychic mediums, Chelsea Gill being one of them. The first one that I encountered, I was 17 years old. I was living in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is a couple hours away from where I live at now. And I was considering joining the Air Force at the time. Why the Air Force? I wanted to be a pilot. I never would have made it because, first of all, I have glasses. I think that's automatic out. But I never really told anybody about that at that point. And in the town I was living in, we had a lady that ran a psychic shop. And one day I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in here. I got a few extra dollars, and I just want to see what happens. And I sat down with this lady, and she took my hand, and she looked at my hand, and she was doing whatever it was she does. And the very first words out of her mouth from this lady that I had never met, never talked to, could not have possibly known anything about me. The first words out of her mouth were, I see you flying. I was a believer from that point in time. Now, I did not go on to join the Air Force, but coincidence was out the window when it comes to something like that. So, like I said, I've had a couple of experiences that make me a believer. Not everybody is. What can you tell us about psychic mediumship? Not to sway people's opinion, but to let them know that what you and other people with this ability are able to do is genuine. Explain it as if you were standing in front of somebody now who didn't believe any of it. What would you tell them?
Well, the first thing I would probably tell them is that in order to even be able to approach somebody or something like this, even in the paranormal, you have to have an open mind. You know, you you have to have that your mind open enough to where you can accept a lot of different things. Not that you have to continue to accept it, but let that thought process kind of run through you and let you kind of think about making up your own mind about it. The old saying is proof is in the pudding, you know, or validation or something like that. Mediums use validation. Um, Other people, who want to ask questions about the mediumship and how if it's fake or if it's not fake. It just goes back to use an open mind. And once you've done that, once I would basically say to a person who is questioning that, um, who are diehard, you know, not for it. You know, it's kind of hard to sway somebody. So I don't try to.
Hmm.
I just tell them what I see. And if it validates and if it relates to them in that sense, then that's the only thing I can do. My other motto is if I don't see it, I don't say it. I don't make stuff up. If I'm not seeing it, if I'm talking to somebody who's not a believer but wants to still use my services or, find out if I'm actually real or not
Hmm.
real, um basically it's just one of those things where I have to give them what I see. And once I do, if it relates to them, fine. If it doesn't, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong or that it's I'm making it up or something like that. I'm a firm believer if I don't see it, I can't say it because I can't, in good conscience, go. It's in other words, color outside the lines. In my mind, I have this where I color inside the lines of a picture of an image. Okay. Now, the minute I go outside the lines, then that thought process becomes conjecture, and I'm using my own thoughts and doing it instead of listening to spirit, or listening to the person or the spirit that's coming through. You
Hmm.
know, so I try to stay as within the lines the best I can. There's times where it's not as easy, where I don't get anything,
Hmm.
and I still won't color outside the lines. And
Right.
sometimes it comes out like a puzzle, And I tell everybody this too. If I can't see it, or if I give you a message that you don't understand, doesn't mean that I'm wrong or that I'm making it up or something like that, because it may hit you 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, or never. More than likely, it'll resonate at some point, and you'll wake up and say, "Oh, that guy was telling me about this." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at with that.
And that's kind of the direction that, I was expecting you to go with that. There are people out there who will claim to have abilities and are going to try and make you believe that they are right and you are wrong. And there are people that are out there that are doing stuff like this for money that may not have abilities. I mean, there's a whole plethora of things, but the main thing is you will not have a psychic medium for the most part. You'll never pass someone with that ability on the street and they're going to stop you and say, "Hey, I got to tell you something." From what I have found, is that seeking out people with these abilities, if people are doing that, they at least have an understanding of what a psychic medium
Mhm.
does and a degree of belief
Mhm.
in it. And it's at that point with that initial engagement that the ice has kind of already been
Mhm.
broken, and you just have to push those pieces aside so that you have that clear water and ease into that
Right.
conversation. Um, Not all people who claim to be psychic mediums are, but the ones that are generally are not. Like I said, they're not going to force feed anything to you, and
Right.
that's kind of what it sounds like you were saying there, which
Yeah.
is great. People that are seeking answers are going to seek those answers, and they're probably going to be drawn to someone like yourself to help
Mhm.
try and uncover those
Right.
answers. Um,
But you know what? That's
how?
funny that you talk about the people who are just want to do it for money or do it for different reasons. They may
Mhm.
have some sort of gifts. They may not. What I call those mediums are armchair mediums. They sit in their chair and then they take their arm and they think, "Oh, what can I come up with?" They're armchair mediums. And
Yeah.
I've met a lot of them. Mediums know mediums. That's another thing. Like
Mhm.
if I go to an event or I meet somebody on the street or I have this connection or I'm drawn to this person, and usually it's another medium or somebody with some type of gift, in that area. Um, I've I've had mediums say the same to me. Mediums know mediums. It's kind of a knowing, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then there's ones that well, I do, and most people can too, but people with gifts know people that are full of crap. I mean, it's like, yeah, you know what? Your energy is totally backwards, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Not that I would tell people that, because that's not my place. Unless they affect me in a way where it's going to come into my circle and affect me in a way where I'm going to be like, okay, now you're invading my space and I'm going to push you back. Okay.
Sure.
There's people out there like that, but that's not even in just mediumship. It's everywhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah.
so um I have a small circle and I protect myself accordingly. I've had people on social media call me a fake.
Hmm.
The person that didn't even know me, and I wasn't even friends with her,
Right.
you know. But because the fact that she felt threatened, because people who are using their gifts for nefarious
Hmm.
motives will always be threatened by people who are trying to do mediumship work with good intentions and helping people and this and that. People that are trying to get ahead of themselves and ahead for financial gain, those are the ones that you have to watch out for.
The old adage of one bad apple ruins the bunch.
This is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, and I totally understand. I will say, one thing that I haven't heard before you said it today, actually, was that mediums or people with abilities can recognize others like that. I've never heard anybody say that before, so
Yep.
that's
Oh yeah.
kind of interesting. But I guess it makes sense because, especially as someone with abilities like yourself,
Hmm.
you realize that everything is connected, and everything in the universe is
It's all
connected.
about
No matter, at
frequency.
least I
Yeah, it's all
believe.
about frequency.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when mediums can know mediums, they give off that frequency. And if they mesh and connect, then
Hmm.
yeah. But if they don't, I ran into people that I can only take in doses. I mean, I've met
Hmm.
that aren't even mediums, but people that I've worked with in the past that have been like, I could talk to you for like 2 minutes and that's it, because my frequency does not mesh with yours. And I wouldn't
Right.
say that, but it's just
Right.
so it's
Right.
everywhere. And when mediums know mediums, it's usually the ones that have the good intention. That the
Hmm.
bottom line is helping people. That's Mediumship
Right.
is about helping people. It's not about winning lottery. It's not about all that stuff that that you can gain
Yeah.
money and fame over. That's not what it's about. It's about helping people and giving guidance to people who need it at their journey in life.
Hmm.
We all have this journey that we're all learning and doing, and transcending into a higher level in life. Yeah, it's what I can do. It's about helping people.
Right.
So
Um, Now I want to ask you this, and I want to kind of carry this on to another part of the discussion. When did you realize, at what point in your life did you realize that you had these abilities? Is it something that runs in the family? And also, when you first started having experiences, what did you do from that point?
I'd have to go back to when I was a kid. um, I have a extraordinary memory of when I was one. I
Oh,
remember that far back. I think I was probably close to 8 or 9 months, close to when I was one. And I have certain memories of that year. Um, as time went on, I would still have, memories of different things here and there. I would experience things when I was probably getting past puberty. And that's when I saw my first full body apparition when I was 16. Um, I would start to hear certain voices or certain things, um, it was kind of weird. It's like hearing a crowd, standing in a crowd that you can't see these people, but you could hear them, and they're all having this conversation. So it was like being in a room full of spirits, but you can't see them, but you can hear them. And I was hearing them kind of not audibly, but it was like in my head that I could hear them. There, I thought I was going crazy, but actually I wasn't. Fast forward after, if people want to listen to my paranormal memoirs episode 2, I talked a little bit about how I was getting older, and as I was getting older, I was experiencing more paranormal more and more. It wasn't until I had um, a stroke in 2013, and um, probably a couple of years after that, that's when I quit drinking and I quit everything, and the doors to my mind opened up, and I walked through, and there it was. It was always there. I was always experiencing some level of mediumship when I was growing up, but because of the fact that I drank alcohol like a fish, like a fish. That's funny. I don't know why people say that,
I
but
don't
you
either.
know, but after I was always running away from something, and I diluted the truth with alcohol or whatever, because I couldn't take on life on life's terms, was basically the reason. When all that was taken away from me, I had no choice but to face that. Once I faced that, then that's when all my gifts really started to flourish and open, and I went through the whole, oh my gosh, I got to deal with being a medium.
Mhm.
How do I tell certain people they're going to think I'm crazy?
Right.
People don't believe in this. I had to go through the whole, and it's like coming out of a closet, the proverbial closet.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that wasn't easy, but I did it, and I still, do that. You know,
Right.
I'm not afraid to be who I am. I've been ridiculed. I've been laughed at, literally laughed at a
It
session.
comes with the territory, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but it's just how much confidence you have in yourself and how much support system you have around you.
Mhm.
Support is key. And I've always told people that.
I do have a question here that someone was asking on the YouTube live here. Um, Something I didn't even think to ask, so I'm glad this person brought it up. Cold Hawk here. Psychic mediums that do readings through FaceTime, Zoom, or other type of electronic means, does it really work? And how does that energy work in this new era of technology?
This has been something that, let's put it this way. I don't have any problem doing through, Zoom or whatever on the internet or whatever. I've done readings through texts.
Oh,
So, um, it's whatever, however I'm connected to that person. If I can look into that person gives me permission to look into them and look to
mhm.
see, the spirits that are around. That's how I can connect. Doesn't matter if it's a TV, doesn't matter if it's a cell phone, doesn't matter if it's, you know, um, they can write me a letter, if I can hold that letter, because of the fact that that's psychometry. If I can hold that letter that they wrote, I can connect with whatever the energy was at that time was with you that you wrote that letter. So
That all
yeah,
translates
it
just
all
to,
trans. Yeah, yep, yep. It's just the energy. It's the energy that I'm able to pick up and able to kind of go back in time, or not go back in time, but use for paranormal teams or whatnot. Or like I did the other day, I was out and I didn't know anything about the building. I had to go back different times to try to find out what the building was there before. So I kind of start at the beginning, and then I work my way up
okay.
through the years, and that's whatever I see. You know what I mean? And that still can be a puzzle. Depends on how much energy was there, how much the land had energy, the people that were there. You know what I mean? So it's just there's a
Not
lot of different
imagine
factors
something
in
like
that.
that, what you just described, like walking into a house and experiencing that whole history. That has to be extremely draining.
Yep.
Um,
Oh yeah,
how are you
yeah.
able
It is.
to maintain yourself during that experience?
Usually I meditate a short kind of prayer type protection upon
Yeah.
myself so that my energy does not get zapped out of me. I've had it happen where I went to a college up north with one of my camera guys, and we were investigating an old college, and I picked up on this hoodie, this kid in this classroom with a red hoodie, and I was describing him, and there's certain people that know about it and they don't talk about it because of some type of suicide or something, and it was a Catholic or religious type of college, so they didn't talk about it. But that energy, I could see him sitting there, and because of all the energy in that room, it was hard for me to even protect myself from getting kind of zapped. After that, I was really kind of zapped. It happens. I mean, it just the bigger the location, the more energy you can get
Sure.
sucked out of you.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
Waverly Hills. If I was there, if I was there, yeah, I would have to like spend at least an hour to guard myself and to make sure that all my safeguards were in place before I went in there, because I would have been all the spirits and entities that are in there, whether they be living on this earth or never alive or emotional imp or something like that, they're all around there, and they will suck your energy because that's what they want, is that energy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I can imagine when you walk into a place like that, you're probably like a torch shining in complete darkness to those things.
Will
Um,
be drawn. It's like moths to a flame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to investigate with Sean Austin several times. Sean Austin has some unique abilities, not so much in the psychic medium realm, but um, with the abilities that he has, he's like a light like that too, and it's
Mm-hmm.
something that interests me. It's almost like I wish I could experience that for just a minute to see what it's
Right.
like. But
Right.
um,
Right. Be careful what you wish for.
yeah, yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
as much as I want to, I don't think I really would. But
Yeah.
um, so something you mentioned too, I like to talk about, and you don't have to if you don't want to. This is kind of just something that it just registered with me. You talked about protecting yourself and things like that beforehand. Where do you think that religious beliefs fall when it comes to psychic mediumship? Do you believe that it does or does not, or should not interfere with whatever someone's religious beliefs are? That
Technically,
might be tough to answer. I don't know.
no, 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 that's fine. Technically, I am. I consider myself a Christian. I have a relationship with Christ. I
Okay.
have. I have since 1992 on a Wednesday. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I remember the same
that's
day. Yeah,
accurate.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I reference this again. If you go back to the paranormal memoirs on Studio Six Media Productions, episode 1, I talk about what happened after I accepted Christ and what happened. Now, it's just kind of a scary story. And what people don't realize is that there's good and there's evil. Okay. Whether you have a religious background or whether you believe this or believe that, that is your own belief. I can only believe what I feel and what Christ has shown me over the years and when he's been with me in my darkest hours. And I know that it's him. And I know what happened after I had a stroke, because I'll tell you a little bit of a secret, a short story. Before I had that stroke, I was drinking heavily. I was dating who my it's my wife now. Um, I was dating her, and I really wanted to be with her. I really wanted that relationship. I wanted to be with her forever. I was madly in love with this woman, and I still am. And I was so drunk that I was crying and I was praying at the same time. And I asked God for help. I said, I need help. And the words that came to me from spirit, which I heard clear as day, is you cannot bring that to the table with her. And I said, okay, whatever has to happen, take it away. I don't want to deal with this anymore. He says, okay. I went to sleep right away. I woke up and I had a stroke. I woke up the next morning and then I went, what I mean, and so
Wow.
I didn't have any taste for alcohol. I didn't even know what alcohol tasted like. literally. Um, he also Spirit also told me about a couple days after I was out of the hospital, um, that when I was laying down in bed, Spirit said, "This will come back, and you'll have to deal with it accordingly." I'm like, "Crap, okay." 7 months later, like clockwork, it came back. All of it came back. Whereas then I knew what alcohol tasted like. I Not that I wanted to drink, but I could have had a drink, the whole 9 yards. So I'm like, okay, so I had to deal with that constantly for the next few months until I just decided to make a decision that I just stopped and that was it. And it's been 11, 12 years.
Well, that's interesting because I mean I'm a Christian as well, but it's interesting what you're describing because it went from I'm asking for for help, take this away. Okay, I'm going to take it away, but it's going to come back, and it makes me wonder: was that time in between your initial event and the time that it came back, do you believe that was a test for you? Do
Oh,
you believe
yeah.
that
Oh,
do you
yeah.
believe the world, everything was just suspended for a while?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
why do you think that that was allowed to come back, just to see if you had maintained the faith?
Right. No, because the fact that it was a lesson that I had to
I'm
learn.
sorry, this has turned into a religious discussion.
No, 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 no. It's fine. No, it's because of the fact that before we come to Earth, we have a soul contract. We've all signed up for whatever's going on in our lives. We've all signed up for that. We wanted this. This is when we come to this planet. It's we this is a learning planet. There are certain people in the spiritual world that'd be like, oh heck no, I ain't going down to Earth. That place is nuts. It's one of the hardest planets to live on spiritually to learn. And the only way that I was going to get over this was to have that suspended for that time so that I could learn what it was like to not experience that. You know what
Right.
I mean? So if I had never had a drink or never had, any other type of drug and never experienced that, I would not know what that was like to have a stroke, and I probably wouldn't have had a stroke. You know what I mean? So
Right.
all
Yeah.
there's certain things in life that we all go through and that we all experience for a reason.
Mhm.
It's not just some random,
Mhm.
and it's up to us as human beings to recognize what that is.
Yeah. So after the 7 month period, what happened then? What was the next step
I
in this
uh
process?
um I was just in the process of getting a job. I think it was like 7 months to 9 months, which was another 2 months. I was in my lowest spot, literally. I mean, I felt like I was wandering. I felt like everything was crap. Everything was, I depression wasn't even to describe the way I felt. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I felt defeated. I felt everything. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
had all this coming back at me.
Right.
And once I realized, I woke up and I'm like, it doesn't matter. I need to focus on what I'm doing next. And that's what I did. And a couple of, months later, I got another job. I went back to work. I threw the cane away,
Mm.
and I'm here now to talk about it.
So everything just kind of came full circle. I mean, that's these are stories. You hear stories that have a similar context in
Mhm.
ways that events happen, but it's almost like it makes you believe that you were, do I want to say special? Maybe not special, but that you were chosen to have this experience. And like you were saying, before we all come here, we I'm still trying to wrap my head around this concept, but the previous podcast that I was with, my co-host there, would always talk about how when we come to this earth, we choose this path to live out.
Mhm.
And then when we are done here, we go back and we have a chance to do that all over again. or to choose a different path to continue getting these experiences. And it sounds like what you went through was just that. You know, you were meant to have these experiences from before you even were born here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, your experience, people that are listening to this, there are probably a lot of people out there that have gone through something very similar. And maybe those people didn't realize that that was an experience that they were meant to have, because in a sense, it's a wake up call
Right.
to something greater than yourself. And, you know, I think that's, it's a very heavy subject. I know it's difficult to talk about religion sometimes,
But take religion out of it.
you know,
If you take religion, take religion out
yeah,
of it, and look
just the
at that
experience.
experience of what you went through, and putting all that aside, regardless of who you believed that you've talked to or who you felt, I know that, you know, having that my gifts came from God, came from, you know, the spiritual side of that. I know that, you know, it's more of a knowing instead of a believing, and
Right.
there's a difference. When people go through something, they know that they had to go through that, because later on they realize, if I didn't go through that, where would I be? Go through that, and then you're still doing it, but you know that you shouldn't, but you believe that you should. If that's confusing, but you
Yeah,
should,
that makes
and
sense. Yeah.
and you don't. You're still believing that you should, but you're still doing the same thing, knowing that you did,
Right.
and knowing that you should, and doing that and taking care of all that stuff. That believing becomes knowing, saying, "Yep, I did that."
Yeah. And doing something again, like you were saying, that you know you shouldn't be doing, but you're doing it anyway. That's where the opportunity comes in to
Several times.
either, yeah, I mean it's wild to think about it in the grand scheme of
Mhm.
things, but when you talk about it in smaller chunks like that, you
Yep.
know, it really does start to make sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um, so in this journey that you've been on, you said how long ago this was. This all occurred.
This
Okay, so
was
really not incredibly
2013.
long ago. What is
Mhm.
what has the difference been before these events and after these events in terms of your gifts? Has there been any changes in the before and after?
Oh, yeah, the after when I was done drinking and done doing whatever I was doing that was, inebriating my brain and my body, um, I was standing at the doorway, the spiritual doorway, and it was, um, spirit basically saying, "Okay, now you can walk through that door instead of coming in like a revolving door," because that's what I was doing
Yeah,
before. I would come in, go, and could go out, go in, go out. This time I went through that door and I closed it, and that's where I've been ever since. And that's why I'm able to talk to you about my gifts and the experiences that I've had and all this other stuff. So my past is where it
right,
belongs, and my future is, and my present is where I try to keep my feet on the ground, because I don't try to look too much into the future, because I don't like doing that,
right.
because I don't want to know. I would rather experience the knowing of the, you know, learning the aspect of that, instead of saying, "Oh yeah," you know. And just on a side note, um, any mediums or psychics that say, "I know lottery numbers," or "You can win this and you can do this," and
Okay,
it's full of crap. We don't operate that way. It's kind of a faux pas thing for mediums to do that. We don't do that for financial gain in that sense. That's something that the dark side is basically kind of blanketed on mediums, because there's other mediums that don't necessarily get their gifts from the light. And I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say anything else, but there are certain people out there that think that they're getting their information from the light, and they're actually not.
and that's
So
actually kind of one of the next things I wanted to get into just briefly, to discern where these gifts are coming from. Okay.
I see it. I feel it and I see it. Now, I have a couple guides, which happen to be my grandmother, and my mother is like a my mother is passed in 2007. She's there.
Mhm.
Um, she sits in a chair in the back because I had this. I had to create this image and this visual in my head of sitting in the kitchen and on a farmhouse. Okay, because that's what I could relate to.
Okay.
So there is my mother sitting in the chair in the back where there's a door, nothing but light. Okay. And then my grandmother, who is standing or sitting in a chair right by the kitchen sink, reading an old magazine. And I also have a kitchen table that's like a picnic table that in the middle where I have my other guides, which are Native American, two of them. Standing Bear is one of my guides. Um, and then another Native American that I don't know his name, but he's there. And then behind me, there's a doorway to a hallway, a staircase that is always shielded in a blue light. Whereas, and if there's somebody waiting for a reading or somebody, a spirit that wants to come through, they wait there in the hallway. It's like a waiting area.
Okay.
And then if I'm talking to somebody and that person stands up and comes through, and then I get the message. You know what I mean? I have to. I'm a very visual person, and I've always been a visual person. So I have to create these images in my head so that my brain can flow. You know what I mean? I just and it may sound silly, but that's kind of how I work. You know?
Well, it also gives you something to visualize as opposed to your mind racing trying to create
Right.
something.
Right.
You've already
Right.
got something set.
I got
Yeah.
I got a context of reference. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm an odd duck. I'll tell you what. I don't
Well,
hold anything
yeah,
back.
I wouldn't
So,
say you're an odd duck necessarily. I mean, I've talked to other people, that have different abilities as well, and I think we're all odd ducks in a way. We all have our weirdness or our weird qualities or things about us.
mhm.
Um, but it fascinates me. The subject of mediumship fascinates me, and the fact that someone can be handed an object and put it in their hand, and they're able to see where it came from. And I mean,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
blows my mind that these abilities exist. Although I've seen some of them in action, and I know they do. People that can see a spirit, that stuff, it never ceases to amaze me.
Right. Right.
I'm lucky if I hear something knock on a wall in a haunted location. Other people are standing there like, oh yeah, she's standing right there, and here's what she's telling me. Like, blows my mind.
But think
And I think
about
it's really
this,
neat. But
Sean. Think about this. Everybody has that ability,
yeah,
and
I've heard that.
I truly believe. But whatever path that you chose before you came to Earth, if that wasn't in your contract to do that, you know what I mean? If it wasn't in that
Hmm.
where that's what you're gonna focus on, you know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe there was
Yeah.
something else that you need to focus on because not everybody says there's not everybody that says I'm a medium. There's people that don't believe it. People say it's evil.
Hmm.
People say the whole gamut
Right.
of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So um, to each his own.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You know,
agree. I agree.
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's great to hear. You're of course in the course of this podcast. I hope to have many more psychic mediums on and people with abilities. But it's great to have something like this to kind of set the bar for
mhm,
future discussions because I feel like we could talk about 20 different
right.
things for the next 20 hours. Um, there's so much to talk about, and hopefully at some point through the journey of this podcast, dots will be able to be connected. These will gain little pieces of information that they didn't know before, and maybe start to kind of, as a collective, put things together and maybe get some more answers, because
Hmm.
clearly that's what we're all in these fields for,
Right.
is to get answers.
Right. Right.
And
So I was going to say too that because of the fact that Now, you talk about having, setting the bar for different guests or mediums, but understand
Hmm.
that there is no medium that are the same. They're going to have different ideas. They're going to have
Oh,
different
sure.
concepts.
Yep.
They're going to
Right.
handle things differently. It may be similar to what I do or to what our friend Kelly does or Angel does, or
Hmm.
whoever, but they're all different experiences for that fit their space on this timeline. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Exactly.
so that's
Yep.
but you'll be able to tell the one saying, "Oh, that's crap." Another medium will say, "That's crap." That doesn't happen as a. It may not happen in the way you think,
Yeah.
but if you really sit down to think about it, could it be possibility that that person experienced it for a certain reason that you didn't?
Hmm.
So you have to have that, where I go back to it, an open mind.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't try to condemn anybody, but if I have a sense that your frequency is dark, I'm gonna I'm
Sure.
gonna stay away from you. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I am. I don't
Yeah.
vibe
I
with
don't
people
blame
like
you.
that,
I don't blame
you know?
you.
And
Well, I'll
so
tell you what. I mean, you've given me a lot to think of, and given me some avenues that I can go and some further research on this. And I do appreciate you sharing your story with
mhm,
friend, that we get our stories out there, because like I
mhm,
said, maybe there's some part of this story that'll resonate with somebody else. Maybe it'll
yep,
be that time that they need to open up their ability, to open up their mind, and maybe see some things that they weren't able to before. At the very least, it will let them know that no matter what your life experience is, it's okay to share it, because somebody might need to hear it. So I
mhm,
think that's great that we were able to at least get to that point. Um, I feel there's so much more we could talk about. So at some point in the future, I'd love to
sure,
have you back on
mhm.
to chat again. Um, but before we go, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, anywhere they can find things that you've written, or anything to find out and more about you and to be able to connect with you.
Okay. So you could
So go ahead and take.
okay, so you could find me on Studio Six Media Productions, which is also Studio Six Productions on Facebook. You can also find me on TikTok as well as Instagram. You can find me under JD Hill on Facebook and Instagram. Paranormal Station is also on Instagram. It's another page I have. Um, yeah, I have my email address on my Studio Six page. I also have Beyond the Reaper podcast, which talks about NDEs. I've had a couple shows on that. Studio Six Paranormal Memoirs, which is on audio file, which you can find it on everywhere you get your podcasts from. I get mine from Spotify. Um, Studio Six is right there on the top. It's a really good story. I've got three so far. I'll hopefully have more to record. Uh, I do want to excuse me. I do want to let everybody know that I will be starting a documentary series. Uh, uh, it's a three-part series. One in the beginning, it starts with the Old West. The second one will be Gettysburg. The third one will be the mob history in Chicago um, from the 20s and 30s. And I am actually flying out. I haven't announced this, but I'll announce this on here. I'm flying out to Arizona at the end of this month, the 27th to the 30th, to Tombstone, going to try to do investigation at the Birdcage Theater. I'm also going to do some research and talk to some of the locals there that have history that hasn't been told. This is part of my documentary series that I'm going to do. The first installment is probably going to be one or two shows, um, which I'll have to edit myself. So I'm also going to create Indigo fund me page for travel expenses, because this is a very expensive gig to get into. I'll hopefully have that created this week, and I'll send you the link, Sean,
Please
so
do.
that you could share it, and I'll have that posted. So if people want to support me in my journey with this this first documentary that I'm going to work on, it's called The Spirits of the Old West. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to visiting everywhere in Tombstone. So, having said that, like I said, if you want to check out my TikTok page, go ahead. Um, it's I don't post too much on there, but I do have a few things that you can check out. So yeah, I'm just kind of everywhere, but what I'm working on now is just the documentary and trying to get the funding for the travel, and then I'll be doing another paranormal memoirs probably this week. I got another story I need to tell. So
Definitely sounds like a full plate, and you heard it here first. Some breaking news. It hasn't even been made public yet, so that's pretty cool. And if you want to be able to support Jay, once I have that information, I'll be sure to put that up on all my social media. Two of those things really interest me that you were just talking about. One is Gettysburg, because that's probably my favorite place on the planet. Mm-hmm. I had one of my two most profound paranormal experiences in Gettysburg. One that actually changed me as a person and an investigator for the rest of my life. That's how profound it was. And then I grew up outside of the Chicago area. I went to college in downtown Chicago, and I used to really be into the old mafia stuff back in the day. So that's pretty cool. That's kind of close to home for me there. So I'll tell you what, I look forward to seeing all this stuff come to fruition. Hopefully people out there will be able to help you out financially, because Lord knows this is not a cheap hobby that we do.
No.
Especially when you're trying to be sure to follow JD Hill at all links he provided. Keep up with the story. I will post updates on my social media as well once he's got those. And hopefully we can make this come together for him and make his financial burden just a little bit easier. So Jay, I thank you for being a part of the show tonight. I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful chat. I wasn't sure how I was going to start or where it was going to go, but it went where I think it needed to go. And I think we have much more to talk about in the future. Also, don't forget, once Para Magazine comes out, issue 1, you can find a little bit more about J.D. Hill in there as well. So thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
And I look forward to the next time that we speak. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. All right. I stopped Zoom recording. We're still on YouTube. Thank you, everybody that joined us on YouTube. Hopefully I got to all your questions. I kind of stopped looking there for a minute because I was so into the conversation. But thank you for joining us here for the last couple hours tonight on our last episodes. And you heard it all. If you want to get in contact with Jay, you've got all the socials now. And if you forgot them, go back and watch the episode again. It'll add a view. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, Jay. Let me stop the YouTube here. So, in order to do that, I may have to. I may have to actually end the whole thing in order to do that. That's okay. The information that we talked about before we went on. Let's try and connect tomorrow at some point.
Yep.
Maybe if you're available, and we can talk about that stuff. And I appreciate that as well. We'll see if that does any good for me. So, but yeah, again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you tomorrow. I usually get off of work about where are you at exactly?
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Eastern time. I don't know what the time zones are anymore, but I
I'm
think
an
you're probably
hour. I'm an hour. I'm an hour north of Chicago.
Okay, so you're going to be an hour. What time is it for you now?
9
Okay, so
o'clock.
I'm an hour ahead of you. But yeah,
Right.
anytime tomorrow afternoon, just reach out to me and we'll try and connect at some point and
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Well, hey,
Yeah.
thank you, man. I appreciate it greatly.
Yeah. This was great. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, no problem. Anytime.
All
You have a
right.
good night.
You too.
Thank you.